Are you the quantum mechanics?
Yes, we are the Quantum Mechanics, the paranormal podcast for the believers, the doubters, and everybody in between.
Got a new Patreon, I believe.
We have. Thank you, Edgar.
Edgar, thanks for joining. If you want to become a patron, really helps us out. Get the episode about a week early. Get Ben and Peter's Extra Scoop, our exclusive Patreon episode. It's all ad-free, nice community, lots of chat going on there, and access to our Discord server as well.
Yes, exactly. And you can now gift it for that person in your life that you only want to spend £4.50 on.
Does it come with a bow?
I'll do a bow thing.
I think we're going to just get straight into it today, Ben, because there's quite a lot to cover.
Yeah, before we started, you said, this is meaty.
It's meaty.
Okay, I'm going to get comfy.
Buckle yourself in, put on your tinfoil hat, because this week I'm going full-on woo-woo.
Okay. Well, you've given me, and our patrons got it, you've given me a bingo card.
Yes.
And this is some sort of, like, this story is so crazy that there's a self-awareness that all of the paranormal tropes do come up.
Pretty much. So yes, we've got a bingo card. I'll explain that in a minute. If you're out there, Patreons, or anyone who wants to play along with the bingo card, we will have put it on Facebook as well. We'll put a link. Don't do it for my introduction, because you'll tick quite a lot off during the intro. I'll tell you when to start, Ben and everyone else. But yes, we're looking for a full house. When I've mentioned each of the topics on the bingo card, which is very wide-ranging, you can shout out bingo.
Okay.
I want to focus on a story that involves a secret base that carried out experiments in time travel, psychological warfare and mind control. Covers all types of paranormal phenomena, time travel, psychic abilities, cryptids, UFOs and aliens. Names that have been connected to the project include Nikola Tesla, Wilhelm Reich, and the founder of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard.
Wow.
Yes.
So, like, literally the big players.
The big players.
Right.
It influenced the TV series Stranger Things.
Oh, yes.
It also influenced the movie Total Recall, which we'll talk about in a minute. And elements of the story, they haven't said it influenced it, but there's so much about this, as you'll hear when the story goes along, that reminds me of the TV series Severance as well.
Right, okay. So this feels like it's almost, well, you mentioned Total Recall, but it's almost the plot of a Philip K. Dick book.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
Now, I'm talking about what has become known as the Montauk experiments. Now, believers say it's one of the biggest cover-ups in history. Critics say it's a work of fiction passing off as fact and a ridiculous conspiracy theory. Today, I wanted to look at the book that started it all. It's called The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time. It's by Preston B. Nichols with Peter Moon. The book was first published in 1992 and was followed by a series of books exposing more, or building on the fiction, depending on your point of view. Now, before we get into the book and the incredible story it holds within, let's take a look at the background of the authors, starting with Preston B. Nichols. So his background prior to writing the Montauk Project and the works that followed included experience as an electronic engineer and technician. He reportedly worked in the defence industry, specialising in electronics and communication technology. So he says. There's not much evidence of that. It's kind of coming from him.
Oh, is there not? Right.
He reminds me a bit of Bob Lazar, but I think there's probably more evidence that Bob Lazar did actually work where he says he worked. Now, the other main contributor to the book is Peter Moon, who said to have a background in journalism, publishing and media, and has worked as a magazine publisher and editor. Again, a lot of that is coming from the writers, not necessarily has been fact-checked. Now, the big question on this and the other books published by Nichols and Moon are whether they are accounts of a true story or a work of fiction passing off as fact. The authors themselves do address this point in the introduction. Peter Moon writes in the introduction, "Some of the data you will read in this book can be considered as soft facts. Soft facts are not untrue, they're just not backed up by irrefutable documentation. A hard fact would be documentation or hard physical evidence that could stand up to scrutiny. By the nature of the subject matter and security considerations, hard facts about the Montauk Project have been very difficult to obtain. There is also an area between soft and hard which can be termed grey facts. These would be very plausible but not as easily provable as hard facts. This bit I've found really interesting. They say their book is being presented as non-fiction and it contains no falsehoods to the best knowledge of the authors. However, they say it can also be read as pure science fiction if that is more suitable to the reader.
Okay, that is very Philip K. Dick, yeah.
So, I don't know, it made me think a little bit about... do you remember when Fargo, the movie, came out? And there's that big thing, this is a true story, and the names have been changed. Obviously, it wasn't a true story. That was just a
marketing gimmick.
A thing that the Coen brothers did when they made the movie. It reminded me of that a bit. But as we often say on the Quantum Mechanics bent, let's go with it.
Yes. Well, you don't really have a choice because I guess there's a lot of people who swear blind that it did happen.
Yes, in quite an interesting way when we get into it. So let's take them at their word that this is a true story, and we can debate that a bit at the end. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Now, as we said, we've livened things up by creating a paranormal bingo card for you, Ben. So if I mention...
have it here?
You got it there? If I mention one of the words on your card, or topics on your card, mark it off and see if you can get a full house. Just shout bingo when you're there, Ben.
Okay.
Okay, let's delve into the weird world of the Montauk Project, Experiments in Time by Preston B. Nichols with Peter Moon. Montauk Point is a location at the eastern end of Long Island in the US. To the west of the landmark lighthouse, got a very famous lighthouse there, you will find an abandoned Air Force base. The base was officially abandoned by the US Air Force in 1969, but the authors claim the base was reopened without the sanction of the US government and was used for the Montauk Project. Now, according to Peter Moon, co-author of the book, says, a circle of insiders believe the Montauk Project was a development and culmination of the phenomena encountered on board the USS Eldridge in 1943, popularly known as the Philadelphia experiment. The ship that temporarily disappeared while the Navy conducted radar invisibility experiments. According to these accounts, over 3 decades of secret research and applied technology ensued. Experiments were conducted that included electronic mine surveillance and the control of distinct populations. The climax of this work was reached at Montauk Point in 1983. It was at this point that the Montauk Project effectively ripped open a hole in space-time to 1943.
I see.
Now, I'm sure most of you listening to our podcast are familiar with the Philadelphia experiment. But as a summary, it is said that the US Navy conducted a secret experiment in 1943 to make the USS Eldridge, a Navy destroyer, invisible to radar, and it possibly teleported as well.
Yes, and then there's loads of accounts of people materialising halfway in the deck and
correct,
having horrendous deaths, yes.
Well, the experiment took place at Philadelphia Naval Shipyard and involved advanced electromagnetic technology.
And cream cheese.
The experiment caused the ship to vanish from sight, and in some versions of the story, as Ben was saying, also resulted in crew members experiencing strange side effects such as teleportation, disorientation, or even being fused to the ship's structure. Now, according to the book we are reviewing today, a hole in time was created from the Montauk base in 1983 back to the USS Eldridge in 1943. But let's get into how the main author of the book, Preston B. Nichols, came across this information. Now, Nichols began work as a defence contractor in 1971 for a company that he calls BGM, but that's a fake name. So hard to find any bits of it. He says he's done that for security reasons. He had a degree in electrical engineering and specialised in electromagnetic phenomena. Although I was not extraordinarily interested in the paranormal at the time, Nichols writes, I had obtained a grant to study mental telepathy and to determine whether or not it existed. I'm not sure why you would be an
No.
No, but hey. I sought to disapprove it, but I was surprised to find out that it did, in fact, exist. I began my research and found out that telepathic communication operated on a principle that was strikingly similar to that of radio waves. As part of his experiment in 1974, Nichols began working with a number of psychics, and he noticed that every day at the same time, the psychics' minds would be jammed. They couldn't work. They couldn't get psychic information.
Right.
I used my radio equipment, he says, and correlated what came over the airwaves at the time the psychics were not functional. Whenever a 410 to 420 megahertz cycle appeared on the air, they were jammed. When the 410 to 420 megahertz cycle was off, the psychics would open back up after about 20 minutes. Nichols decided he was going to trace this signal and finds out it's coming from a radar antenna at Montauk Point.
Okay.
So he tries to find out what this antenna is. He doesn't really get anywhere. He can't get any information out of it for 10 years. And then after 10 years, he gets a call from a friend telling him that the base is now abandoned and they should go and have a look. You would, wouldn't you?
Of course.
It was indeed abandoned, he says, with debris strewn everywhere. I saw a fire extinguisher left amidst many scattered papers. The gate was opened, as were the windows and the doors of the buildings. This was not the way the military normally leaves a base. He also finds a lot of abandoned equipment and, given his interest in radio, inquired as to whether he could buy it. So he checked out with military and various other suppliers, but all the military and agencies he spoke to said nothing to do with us. Eventually he contacted someone from the military and was told no one officially owned the equipment and he could take what he wanted.
What? No way.
Yeah, result, eh? So Nichols and a friend, who was a psychic, chip up at the abandoned airbase and they meet a guy called Mr. Anderson, who's the caretaker. This is where things start to get a bit weird. While searching the base for equipment, they come across a homeless man living in one of the buildings. And this is what Nichols said that the man told him. He had been living in the building ever since the base was abandoned. He also said there had been a big experiment a year earlier and that everyone had gone crazy. Apparently, he'd never gotten over it himself. In fact, the man recognised me, Nichols said, but I had no idea who he was or what he was talking about. I did listen to his story. He said he had been a technician at the base and that he'd been AWOL. He had deserted the project just before the base had been abandoned. He spoke about a big beast appearing and frightening everyone away. He told me that he remembered me well. In fact, that I had been his boss on the project.
Wait, so there's missing time here and memory. Is it memory erasing or is it missing time?
Yes, we'll get onto that.
Okay.
It's quite complicated. Anyway, Nichols thinks this is pure nonsense, the ramblings of, some homeless guy. After a few weeks after this event and removing some of the equipment, Nichols is working in his lab when another man bursts in and claims to know him, saying that Nichols had been his boss at Montauk. This is second person arrives. Nichols, intrigued by all this, starts investigating further. He starts talking to locals in the area, and they tell him about strange weather events that had previously happened. Snow in August, severe thunderstorms just appearing, even hurricane-force winds coming out of nowhere. There's also a weird conversation, Ben, with the chief of police, who said that the area in general was pretty quiet in terms of crime. Then all of a sudden there would be a spate of many separate crimes over a 2-hour period. Then it would all stop. And this happened on multiple occasions.
Like a purge
Yeah,
thing.
very much like that.
Oh, right.
So nothing would be happening in the area. It's, I guess the usual cat up a tree type stuff. And then suddenly...
The usual.
There'd be a crime wave for 2 hours with all people going nuts.
And how far does this extend to? Like, this isn't just the base, this is the local community.
This is the local community, yeah. Then in November of 1984, Nichols is visited by a man looking to get some radio equipment repaired. His name is Duncan Cameron. Cameron is also a psychic and starts to work with Nichols. Nichols takes him to Montauk Air Force Base. Duncan the psychic tells him that he'd been there before and goes into detail about the layout. Later, he tells Nichols that he had been programmed to come to his lab, befriend him, and then kill him and blow up the entire lab.
Okay, so that's going to grab his attention because that. So who sent him?
That's a bit unclear. He also says, this psychic, that he was involved in the Philadelphia experiment and that him and his brother, Edward, had served on board the Eldridge.
Right.
Now, I did some checking around. There are some sources for this in other books that Nichols quotes that mentions the brothers. Yeah. Fact-checking it more than that is quite hard. But you've got this scenario where this guy, who's in the 1980s, says that he was one of the people on board the Eldridge in 1943. And also his brother was. Okay, Ben. Fire up the tinfoil hat. My memory improved while working with Duncan, Nichols writes, and I eventually realised I must have been existing on 2 separate time tracks. As bizarre as it may sound, it was the only sensible explanation under the circumstances. Ben, we then get into some weird stuff. Nichols saying that while he was working as a defence contractor, he remembers band-aids and plasters appearing on his hands that had not been there a few minutes earlier. This happened on numerous occasions. So he'd look down at his hand and there'd be a plaster on it and he'd had an injury, but he remembered nothing of it.
So again, this is missing time?
Yeah, very Severance that, I thought.
It is very Severance, yeah.
Other memories started to come back to Nichols about his time working at the defence company. More unfamiliar people started recognising him. This is weird. He starts getting executive mail only meant for directors of the company. He's invited to attend a conference on patents, and he's also invited to other high-level meetings. He's got no idea why he's being invited to these things. But they're mostly about something called Moonbeam Project. He then gets given this badge that gets him into a heavily secured area. Almost by accident, he gets the badge. Somebody said, oh, you haven't got your security badge. Here, I'll have that. So he can suddenly get into all these secure areas. And while he's wandering around the secure area, he finds a desk with his name on it and a plate saying Assistant Project Director.
So how come he doesn't... What's happened to him? Is this the mystery now of like... So he feels like he's had a memory erased, or it's something that's happening in the future?
Yeah. I think probably the former rather than the latter.
Right. Okay.
So he's saying that working with this psychic Duncan, he starts getting his memories back. Nicole says, I committed everything I saw to memory to the best of my ability. I had an entire second career here that I knew nothing about. And he goes back a few days later into the secure areas, and all traces of his desk have been removed. And the second life he knew nothing about had kind of ended as quickly as it had started. But he did say all his memories of this time did start to come back. Now, Ben, there is a part of the book that involves a secret project in the 1940s called the Phoenix Project. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I have not, no.
Basically, if it existed, it was a US project to control the weather with technology from Dr. Wilhelm Reich, so Austrian scientist. Quite controversial, I think. Now, for those who don't know, Reich, he was an Austrian psychiatrist who claimed to have uncovered a hidden life energy he called orgon, a powerful force he believed flowed through all living things, shaping our health and vitality. His experiments with this elusive energy involved strange devices and bold claims of harnessing it for healing. I think he also did some orgasm kind of therapy as well that he was involved in. So, yeah. What was Reich and the weather controlling of the Phoenix Project got to do with any of this, Ben? Well, according to Nichols, the Phoenix Project absorbed Project Rainbow, which was the code name for the Philadelphia experiment.
Right, okay, so it took on the technology.
They merged the two projects. Okay, bear with me here. These projects, working together in 1948, finally achieved their goal of mind control through electromagnetics in 1967. They went to the US Congress to get additional funding, who basically freaked out at the whole thing, and the project was disbanded in 1969.
Is there evidence that they went to Congress?
I couldn't find any. But it would be top secret, I imagine.
Yes, I suppose.
But basically, some of the military or other deep state forces ploughed on with the project, and the mothballed Montauk Air Force Base was the perfect location to secretly continue their work. Got a question for you, Ben. How do you set up such an expensive operation without government funding?
You could drugs run with the CIA,
Interesting.
maybe, or you get, I don't know, maybe you siphon off dark money from another project.
Well, Ben, the answer should be obvious. It's the Nazis.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course.
It's likely funded by Nazi gold stolen during the war, about
Of
$10 billion
course it's funded by
worth.
At this point, Nazi gold is basically people are using 90 times more than the
There actually
Nazis
was.
had.
Yeah. Well, the Montauk Project was up and running by 1973, Nichols says. The staff was a mixture of military employees, government employees, and personnel supplied by various corporations. Nichols was one of the latter and came to the project in 1973. So this is his memories coming back. Yeah, it's part of this second life that he only just started realising in the 80s. Initially, the experiments involved a test subject in a chair, usually Duncan, the psychic from the Eldridge. You keeping up with me?
I'm getting there, yes.
So they started firing all kinds of radio and other waves to see if it changed the subject's mood or personality. But they suddenly noticed that when they did this, everyone on the base's mood would also change.
Right, so it leaks beyond the experiment chamber.
Yes, indeed.
I'm still trying to work out why they're doing it, just because they can.
Yeah, I think I guess the military, I think there was a bit in the book that said, imagine if you could change your enemy's perception and just wanted to make them surrender.
I see. Yeah, okay.
So they expanded their tests to include people working at the base. They also brought soldiers in there under false pretenses. So have a 2-week holiday at Montauk base. And even the public in the surrounding areas, they were developing mind control, which does tie back to these 2-hour crime sprees that the police chief said would sporadically happen in the area. This was part of the mind control experiment.
Oh, right, so that's deliberate by...
Yeah.
Okay.
They'd fire it up for a couple of hours. There'd be a crime spree. And, that's what was going on.
Wow, okay.
There was also a bit about they managed to do something that made all the animals in the local area head for the town as well, which would have been freaky. That's a bit... there's that Stephen King film, isn't there, with the aliens in that's like that. Shall we ramp it up a level, Ben? Because this has been the real basic stuff.
It's pretty boring now, yeah.
Let's talk about the Montauk chair.
Oh, now I've heard that phrase, but I don't know what it means.
Well, in the 1950s, Nichols says, ITT developed sensor technology that could literally display what a person was thinking. It was essentially a mind-reading machine. It operated on the principle of picking up the electromagnetic functions of human beings and translating those into an understandable form. It would consist of a chair in which a person would sit. Coils, which served as sensors, were placed around the chair. There were also 3 receivers, 6 channels, and a Cray 1 supercomputer, which would display what was on a person's mind, digitally or on a screen.
What, so in text format, or...?
Didn't say.
See, because that's a problem for me, because if you sort of imagine, I don't know, a bus...
Yeah.
It can either draw a bus, it can say the word bus, or it could say red vehicle large.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's odd. How does it claim it's doing it?
Well, any idea where this amazing piece of technology came from, Ben?
Roswell?
Has been suggested, Nichols writes, that the research was aided by the Sirians, an alien race who come from the star system known as Sirius. This theory has the aliens providing the basic design and humans working it out from there.
I love that. Like, they couldn't be asked to finish it. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
It's like an Airfix kit from the stars.
But that also reminded me of Contact.
Oh, yeah.
Because that happens, doesn't it?
It does.
They get the blueprints for the chair. They have to build it themselves, and that's how you do space travel.
Well, I suppose. Yes, okay.
So it was I hope that really clears up your question that the technology couldn't display an image because it is alien technology. So at Montauk, they decided to try and adapt the chair into a mind-altering transmitter. The person in the chair would transmit an alternate reality out to other people. Apart from the mind control possibilities, they thought they could somehow get in contact with the crew of the Philadelphia experiment, I guess to fix what would make gone wrong, maybe? I don't know. I don't know why they were doing it, but they were. There's a lot in the book about fixed points in time, and the Philadelphia experiment had created a fixed point in time. I couldn't quite follow it, so I'm not going to do it here. After they created the prototype for the chair, they put it out for bids for someone to build the real thing. RCA won the bid and built the machine using technology created by Nikola Tesla in the 1930s.
RCA, the people who own the record label?
I think so, yeah. I think they made stereo equipment before, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was Tesla. Tesla's using Tesla's technology, obviously.
Of course.
By late 77, Nicole says, the transmitter was reproducing thought forms without glitches and with a very high degree of fidelity. At this point, they pulled out all the stops, Ben. They had the psychic, Duncan Cameron, concentrate on a solid object. Guess what happens?
He makes it disappear?
The solid object actually participated out of the ether. So he's just thinking, no, it's the other way around. He's thinking of an object and it would just appear.
Oh, and it just appears. Right, okay.
Yeah, he concentrated on a solid object and it appears somewhere else on the base.
So he's magicking stuff up, or is it coming from somewhere else? Is he moving?
I think it's coming from his imagination and creating an alternate reality that becomes bit Schrodinger's catty.
So he's not stealing a truck, he's actually making a truck appear.
Yes, and apparently he could make entire buildings appear out of thin air.
Well, that's handy.
Yeah. They could also use the system to control effectively take over another person.
Right, yeah, that would make sense. But by this point, I mean, this is so dangerous now. You would think that people would put their arms around this and close it down or, like, take it super deep cover.
Yeah, but if it was the Nazis, they're not going to mind, are they?
Oh, well, okay, yes, so yeah, you did point out Congress don't know anything about this.
Yeah, they don't know anything.
But the CIA must know something about this?
No, apparently not.
Oh.
Although the military do seem to be involved, so yeah, it's really hard.
There's a little plot hole.
Yeah. They then realised something about these experiments. Sometimes there would be a delayed reaction. So the psychic Duncan would think of something at 8 p.m, but the object would not appear until 6 a.m. in the next morning. Obviously, this got them thinking about time travel. You would. The clue to understanding time, Nichols writes, was a suggestion that we use a particular type of antenna structure, which is now referred to as the Orion Delta T antenna. It's referred to as the Orion because there was a persistent rumour that the design was given to the project by aliens from the Orion constellation. These are different ones to the Syrians. These is a different group of aliens, gave them this bit of technology.
Cool, okay. I mean, this is getting crazy now.
Yeah. There's more to come.
Right. Let me just check my bingo card.
You must be doing pretty well, yeah?
Yep, doing pretty well. Yep. I've got quite a lot of it here. Yes, okay, I'll keep going.
Cool. Anyway, Ben, the psychic Duncan becomes quite skilled in the chair and began to open up what are described as time vortexes, time tunnels between different points in time which people could travel through. Now, the description of these in the book, do you remember there was that old sci-fi series called, was it called Time Tunnel or something? Do you remember? There was that kind of, the way he describes it, it looks a bit like that, where it almost appears and you can walk through, right?
Yeah.
So they started sending people through to report back and film what they saw.
Oh, Stargate.
Yes, a bit Stargatey, yeah. Not the remote viewing
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the other one, yeah. So, yeah, people start going through these vortexes into different time zones.
Right.
It was quite a dangerous endeavour. Often people would get trapped in time, never to return. Because of this, they started using homeless people.
Brilliant.
Then, weirdly, they started using blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys between the age of 10 and 18 years old.
Okay.
They would get a couple of young boys into the project who would go out and recruit others and lure them into the project. These were usually, coming from broken homes or, bad family situations, so they wouldn't be missed.
It's a pretty tight target demographic.
Really is, yeah. There's not really an explanation about this, but I guess they're hinting at a bit of a Nazi connection there, I guess.
Oh, an Aryan.
Blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys between 10 and 18.
Yeah, I mean, it also sounds a bit creepy.
Yeah. They sent a lot of these quote-unquote recruits to the future, as far as 6037 AD, where it looks like some kind of apocalypse had ensued.
Now, this is beginning to sound like The Time Machine, the original book.
Yeah, H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells, that's the fella. So, 6,000, so that's obviously 4,000 years hence.
There's a lot in the book about this kind of future square, like town square, which has got a gold horse in it, which has got technology in it. But yeah, I couldn't get my head around that. But anyway, there's a horse in the future. It's a horse statue that's made of gold. Nichols claimed that over the course of the project, between 3,000 and 10,000 people became trapped in other times.
That's quite a lot.
Yep.
But if anyone had got trapped in the past, we should have evidence of that.
Yeah, unless it's created a separate multiverse.
Oh, a different... Yes, okay, yes.
Yeah, you're not thinking this through, are you?
No, I'm not, no. Right, okay.
Should we talk about Mars, Ben?
Delicious.
In the early 1980s, the technology was used to gain entry into the underground areas of the Big Pyramid on Mars.
Of course it was.
You know the Big Pyramid, the one that's connected to the face on Mars, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, we're taking that as read now, are we?
We are, yeah.
Right.
Now, this chapter in the book briefly goes into the conspiracy from the book and 1977 film, Alternative 3. So that's where the US and Russians established slave colonies on the Moon and Mars. Obviously.
Yes.
Nichols says, according to the information that my associates and I have dug up, the people who are living on the surface of Mars could not get to the underground beneath the pyramid. The entrances were either sealed or simply couldn't be found. In fact, it appeared that the Big Pyramid on Mars was sealed better than the Pyramid of Giza. Despite all the expensive and fancy technology that was available, the pyramid could not be penetrated. So, Ben, what the outcome of this project's excursions to Mars were, it's a bit of a mystery, as Duncan the psychic's memories were wiped of that time, so nobody remembers exactly what happened next. But they did visit the colonies on Mars to get into the pyramid that's by the face of Mars, but it sounds like they struggled to do that.
Right.
But Nichols does claim the basic idea of the movie Total Recall is based on the Montauk Project's time on Mars. He says the mind-altering chair in the movie is strikingly similar to the chair used by the Montauk Project.
Okay, I mean, sure. But it doesn't make it real.
No.
And also, the people living on Mars, that line is doing a lot of work.
Heavy lifting, not of the pyramid, though.
No. But why there are people living on Mars, are there?
Slave colonies on Mars.
Oh, so this isn't just an imaginary thing, that also happens?
Yeah, and the moon as well.
Wait, who put them there?
I think we'd have to go back to that Alternative 3 book for that, which I haven't read.
Well, so they discover that there are humans as slaves living on Mars and the moon.
Yeah. And they're struggling to get into the pyramid on Mars, so Duncan the psychic does something with the time travel vortex thing to try and facilitate that to happen. But then his mind is wiped, so we don't know what happens next.
I'm Jimmy Hilling so hard my chin is getting red raw.
Well, shall we ramp it up a bit?
I mean, sure. Like, I didn't know whether this was going to make me go, Well, that's convincing, or not.
Yeah.
At the moment, not.
Well, let's ramp up the fantastical high strangeness. On August the 5th, 1983, they decide to run the transmitter and chair non-stop. And on the 12th of August, one of the time vortexes appeared and they could see the USS Eldridge in 1943. Duncan and his brother could be seen on the deck of the Eldridge, so they had to stop 1983 Duncan from seeing himself, because we'd have the old classic time paradox then, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
We don't want that. This is very funny. Nichols writes, the project had now reached apocalyptic proportions. Natural laws were being violated, and it seemed everyone involved felt uncomfortable. 3 colleagues and myself have been privately voicing misgivings about the project over a period of months. We had talked about the pitfalls of dealing with time and how this might affect the karma of the planet. We hoped the project would truncate itself. Consequently, our little cabal created a contingency program that only Duncan could activate. It was designed to crash the entire project. We finally decided we'd had enough of the whole experiment. The contingency program was activated by someone approaching Duncan while he was in the chair and simply whispering, "The time is now." So they're trying to destroy the project at this point because they've realised it might not be.
Yeah.
It might be getting out of hand.
But that doesn't seem a very efficient way of destroying the project. Like,
Well,
maybe just disassembling everything they built would be a better way.
Yeah, but they'd probably be stopped from doing that, wouldn't they?
By who?
By the forces, running the thing. He's only assistant director. He's not in charge of the whole
Oh,
thing.
I see.
But Ben, how do you shut down a project this powerful and dangerous?
You stop writing the absolute BS book.
Nope.
Okay.
You do it with a giant cryptid, of course.
Well, I think that is the end of my bingo card.
Have you hit full house?
Cryptid, yes, I've got full house.
Yes.
So, wow, okay. So just to recap, I'm not going to go through everything, but yes, we have had ET's Deep State, Mars Pyramids, Apocalypse, Memory Wiped, yeah, okay, yes, I've got everything.
Yeah.
What do I win? Do I win an inhaler for my dog to stop him snoring every time we record?
You win the second book in the series of the
yes.
Montauk Project.
Is there a second?
There's 4.
I mean... Okay.
We've got more, though. So
at this point, right, just to recap,
yeah.
they realise it's really dangerous when they see the Eldridge
Yeah.
and realise they could cause a time paradox by 2 people seeing themselves.
Yeah. And general, it's getting out of handness.
So they decide to shut it down, but they can't shut it down in a sort of an obvious way because the powers that be might stop them, even though they're not sure who the powers that be are. Yeah. Therefore, they try to sabotage it.
Yes. So they whisper to Duncan,
yes.
The time is now.
This should do it.
At this moment, Nicole
the time
says,
is now.
Duncan's lets loose a monster from his subconscious, and the transmitter actually portrayed a hairy monster. It was big, hairy, hungry, and nasty, but it didn't appear underground in the null point. It showed up somewhere on the base. It would eat anything it could find and smashed everything in sight. Several different people saw it, but almost everyone described a different beast. It was either 9 feet tall or 30 feet tall, depending on who saw it. I personally believe it was 9 or 10 feet in height. Fright does strange things to people, and no one was sure of the exact physical condition of this monster. No one was in the frame of mind to calmly and collectively analyse its exact nature. My supervisor had ordered us to shut off the generators in order to stop whatever type of phenomena was occurring. That didn't work, so we decided that the thing had to be stopped. It was decided that the transmitter had to be shut down. There were 2 efforts made in this direction. One was said to send someone back and turn off the transmitters on the Eldridge. They would be smashed if that was what was necessary to shut them down. The other effort was by myself and the director of the project. We unsuccessfully attempted to shut down the transmitter at Montauk. I think basically they end up smashing it up.
Oh, so they do go for the
Yeah.
more conventional thing, right? Okay.
Yeah, they eventually did manage to shut everything down and the beast disappeared. But between the giant cryptid and the people on the base smashing stuff up to stop it, the Montauk Project was left in tatters. I've got a photo of the beast. Do you want to have a look?
Go on. Yeah, that looks
Looks a bit like a Bigfoot.
I was going to say, yeah. And what's it behind?
That's part of the base. But interestingly, even...
So that's a real photograph?
Well, what's interesting about this real photo, you know what?
It's not real?
This is my understanding. I'm not 100% clear after reading the book, but my understanding of the photo, and we'll put this on our Patreon and on Facebook. We'll put a link to it. My understanding is, when the base they went and it was abandoned right at the start of this, the guy took some photos and there was nothing there. And then when he had the photos processed, the beast appeared in the photos.
Right, okay.
So this is a photo taken after the events of the beast appearing, but somehow they're in the photo.
No, taken before the events, surely.
No, this much later.
Oh, much. Oh,
like years after the base was abandoned, or months after the base.
Right.
Right at the start, he was trying to get the equipment, and he had a tour around the base, and he took the psychic. They took some photos, and then when they had the photo, they didn't notice the beast. Then they saw the beast in the photos when they had them developed.
So this is a very physical thing.
Yeah,
but it's behaving like nothing that we can understand.
Yeah, because it's come out of the psychic Duncan's mind. It's just a fantasy that he's brought into reality.
Right, yeah. Okay, so a tulpa, basically.
Yeah, basically. I'll let Nichols explain what happened next. After the events of August the 12th, 1983, the Montauk Air Force Base was abandoned. By the end of that year, there was no knowledge of anyone being on the base. In May or June of 1984, a crack squad of black berets was sent to the base. I believe they were Marines, but I'm not absolutely sure. They were reportedly ordered to shoot anything that moved. Their purpose was to purge anyone who might be on the base. There was a second team that followed the black berets. They removed secret equipment, which was considered too sensitive to leave behind. The next step was to prepare the underground to be sealed. Certain incremental evidence was removed at this point. I've heard that a room with hundreds of skeletons was cleared out during this evolution. About 6 months later, a caravan of cement mixers appeared on the base. Many people saw these trucks. They filled the vast underground areas at Montauk with cement. This included dumping cement down the elevator shafts as well. The gates were locked up and the base was abandoned for good. So I'll just give you Nicole's conclusion. There is still one major question. Who was really behind the Montauk Project? There are countless intrigues and scenarios one can envision. Religionists can bring in God and the devil. UFO aficionados can offer a grand scheme of aliens vying for our solar system. Left-wingers will offer explanations concerning the CIA and secret government. I believe that all of the above can shed light on what actually happened at Montauk. It is also my hope that this book will bring more people out of the woodwork. Thus, we can have more answers and less mystery.
But somebody is payrolling this.
Yeah.
So surely wherever the money is going into their accounts from, that's a clue.
You would think, wouldn't you? But what accounts though?
No, but when you get paid, is it a military payroll?
Yeah.
I mean, when you join a company, you have to submit something to HR.
Well, he says that the people on the base were a mixture of military, private contractors and government. So, yeah, deep state in some shape or form. I'm sure you have questions.
I have three which I know will be unanswerable. One, the most important one, how on earth are slaves surviving on Mars?
Good question.
Because they're going to need supplies and they're going to need air and we would know about them.
Bear with me on this. Two possible explanations. Alien technology that gets around all that problem.
Yeah.
Or maybe there are a lot of these chairs and they're just projecting themselves up to Mars. Like the Beast. Doesn't say that in the book. This is just me hypothesizing.
Now, wasn't it Hal Puthoff who saw the sexy naked men working on the moon?
Yeah. And there's definitely the bases on the moon. There's a lot of remote viewing
There
stuff,
is.
isn't there, about the moon and Mars, I guess. More on the moon I've seen.
So we joked about the sexy naked men on the moon, but if you're projecting your image, you would probably project yourself as a sexy naked man.
Well, there's the other thing that... Do you remember when we interviewed Paul H. Smith,
Yeah,
who was part of the Stargate programme?
yeah.
Very level-headed, down-to-earth guy, and I don't know if it was on the podcast or after we just finished recording. We were talking to him, and he said he gave us a bit of a hint, didn't he? He said there's some weird stuff going on the moon, though, and he wouldn't tell us about it.
I know. Yes, that is. So we also covered the time when somebody said that they'd seen on the dark side of the moon building structures, and that NASA was, deliberately and repetitively painting out buildings that were up there. So, okay, I'll go with that. Okay, so next question then is who built the transmitter and why that frequency?
Yeah.
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 It sounds like it was a previous experiment.
Yes, so that probably takes us back to the weather control somehow.
Yeah. Okay.
I think. I'm not sure, but I'm with you. Yeah, no, I'm I'm out of my comfort zone answering that question, but I feel like
they don't answer it really.
Not really,
No.
as far as I remember, or I didn't understand it if they did.
And then the other thing is there's two things about the base at the end there. One, we should be able to visit it and see these plugged up holes.
Yeah.
And we must also be able to find people who were operating that caravan of concrete trucks.
Yeah, true.
And when they're told, just fill in that hole, I mean, you can't just run concrete down long tunnels, I wouldn't imagine. You can't just dump it.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine the military have got secret concrete mixers. You're going to have to get some contractors, right?
Lockheed are making stealth concrete mixers.
Yeah, that you can't see.
Yeah. Out of the sky comes a giant turning barrel lorry. Actually, I will say, one of the disappointing things about being an adult is, didn't you, as a boy growing up, think that cement mixers were going to play a much larger part in your life? Because every other toy I owned had a cement mixer truck in it.
Yeah.
Hardly seen them these days. Anyway, that's beside the point.
There's a few bits as well for me of normally when we do a story on the podcast or a book or something, I'm going to, one probably major exception that I'm going to come back to. There's normally something, no matter how out there it seems, there's normally something that you can go, yeah, but that is a bit weird. This is just out there, right? Closest I think we've done that's as out there as this is the Ringmakers of Saturn. But even that had some photographic evidence you can look at and not,
Evidence in inverted commas.
Yeah. But they're close, aren't they? So I think that's my problem with it. And we've come at it in a slightly tongue-in-cheek way because it's like, I don't know how else to take it. And that bit at the start of the book going, look, we're saying it's real, but I can understand if you think it's science fiction. I don't know if that's a get out or I don't know what that's about.
I'm leaning back in my chair to see what I think about this. Hang on. No, it's no clearer from over here. I think that... I mean, this is a Philip K. Dick book, and Total Recall is also based on some work of Philip K. Dick.
Right.
this has all the hallmarks of somebody making a book that could sell.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I don't know the answer to this. Did anybody get any money, anyone involved in this book, get any money from Stranger Things franchise?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because that'd be interesting if they had.
Yeah. I mean, you can see the bits of Stranger Things in it, can't you?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. And also, I can see...
But in the way it's written, it's not written... You know, sometimes you read like creepypasta and you just know.
Yeah.
Because it's written in that style of a storyteller rather than a factual book. Now, maybe that's the skill of how they put the book together. But there's not a start, a middle and an end in that sense in the book. And the language is presented and, you know, and there are pages. There are other encounters with other scientists and stuff, which I've not included. Yeah, but it just leaps, like this episode has. It just leaps to, let's go to Mars now, you know.
It
does. And then there's a cryptid. Whoa. It's throwing everything in there. It's almost like, let's go with it being a work of fiction passing off as facts. It's almost as if the mission has been, how out there can we be? And still get away with a group of people thinking this is a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Philadelphia experiment, that is a weird one because every time I read something new about it, I mean, I will say I'm pretty convinced it didn't happen and it was something else. But then I've read some very convincing stuff, and we never covered it on the show again because I think other people have covered it, and it's probably most likely a ship being degaussed.
Yeah, we've done a little bit on it, but we've never done a whole ep.
No.
Yeah, because there are some really good documentaries out there about it, yeah.
Yeah, and but I do come away sometimes scratching my head going, okay, that is a bit curious. But there's no smoking gun in any of this.
No.
So...
And a lot of it, because I think I said on the Extra Scoop the other week, I'm going to try and fact check it all, and I just gave up because it's like I can't find anything here, and it's like the company names that he used that he worked for as a fake name. The names have been changed to people he met. It was impossible to check anything really, but I was also a lot of this is based on his and the psychic he's working with suppressed memories, let's call it that, if we go with it. So it's not his, if it's a mind control thing, let's go with it. There's a mind control at Montauk. There's a chair that can do all this mind control, and it can wipe your mind or plant stuff in there. Who's to say this all wasn't planted? You know what I mean? All of it.
Yeah.
If it's not made up. So maybe he does believe it's a true story, but I guess his only first-hand accounts really are him going to the defence contractor and being invited to all these meetings and finding the secret desk. And this sparks more memories to come back for him. But outside of that, all the events, the vortexes, Mars, the beast appearing, the cryptid, this is all his memory of that time that had been suppressed.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that it's a screen memory.
Yeah.
It could be that's how it's connected to the aliens. I mean, I find that, again, difficult to swallow that we've got two different alien races involved in this already.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fun. It's certainly a fun thing to debate.
Yeah.
And it certainly hits all the boxes of everything, every Alex Jones style conspiracy theory.
All the bingo boxes.
Well, I can see why you did it. I would just like one bit of evidence, which isn't a picture of a Bigfoot near a hole, because I mean, that looks very much like the picture of the Bigfoot I showed you last week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that I don't think I believe it, but there might be elements of something in there that isn't so mad. I think mind control, I think we all know that mind control was something the CIA was trying to get right. And this could be a side effect of that.
Yeah.
But there's those weird details like boys aged between 10 and 18 with blue eyes and blonde hair. I mean, that sounds like a screen memory to me.
Well, also, I was thinking, like the crime sprees and stuff, I tried to look into, and I didn't, I've not done it with huge journalistic rigour, but they're things you could check, right? If there were crime sprees in that area that lasted for 2 hours that were unusual, there'd be records of that.
Police reports, yeah.
And if there were, like, blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys disappearing all over town, you'd know about that, wouldn't you?
And that's how we got Hanson.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, but there's more books in the series, and I think I mentioned the founder of Scientology, Hubbard.
Yes.
I think he appears in book 2, which I did start to read book 2 and thought, no, I've got enough here. So who knows? Maybe we'll come back to more of the books, but a bit like the Cassiopean Project, we'll do it in sparingly. But if you're interested, the book is The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time by Preston B. Nichols with Peter Moon.
Interestingly, if you have been following the Cassiopeia Substack,
Oh, yeah.
they released 2 more over the last 2 weeks. They're as crazy as ever, but like I would say, so well researched. We're not going to touch it now till the autumn, and we'll see what else they come up with. But now you've said this, I'm going to go through, and I wonder whether they've ever done a session on this.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I would imagine, because you know what that communication is like, it's frustrating. It's like, yes, no, or yes, that's not too far from the truth.
Yeah.
And... what is the truth?
Maybe it is, maybe it's not.
Yes, riddle me that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is fantastic. For the extra scoop, it's patreon.com/TQM and...
Pod.
Oh, that's right, sorry. Patreon.com/TQM pod.
Either you or me get that wrong every week, don't we?
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a mental block about it.
I'm blocking your mind with mind control from my chair.
Yeah. Well, you're exuding that specific frequency.
Yeah, and let us know what you think about it. I know I hate it when, like, paranormal podcasts say, let us know what you think. But do on this one, because if you think, well, maybe we've been a bit tough on it and a bit too tongue-in-cheek and there's something here, we'd love to hear from it. We're not saying it's not true. It's just... it's so out there, it's hard to almost take it any other way than bingo, isn't it?
You sent me that link this week for, I think it was from The Sun.
Yes.
Might have been The Star. I think it was The Sun.
Star, I think.
The Star, okay. The Russian X-Files saying that aliens turned Russian soldiers into stone.
Yeah.
I mean, that is about as believable as this, and that's
that's
mainstream
in a paper.
news. Yeah. I mean,
maybe we'll talk about that more on the extra
to use your phrase... the paper is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, but yes, it is what is considered in this country a newspaper. Yes. So
yes, we are the quantum mechanics, also known as the justified ancients of woo-woo.
Very good. Very good. Well, we'll be back with another free show next week, and I've hit upon... this had never occurred to me, and then I stumbled across an article, and let me just say this. Have you ever been in a room and people have just decided, for some unknown reason, you can't get anyone's attention, and it's like people are looking straight through you?
I get that at the bar quite a lot.
Oh, it always happens, unless we're at our pub.
Or a restaurant.
Oh, yeah, when you're trying to get the bill.
Yeah.
Trying to get the bill in a Chinese restaurant is
possible.
really impossible.
Okay, so is this going to be, I'm feeling time slips or something going on? I don't know.
No.
Just a different phenomena.
Imagine if Harry Potter's invisibility cloak was real. Ooh. And it's not just one case. There's loads of them.
I love that. Invisibility. Excellent.
Yeah, invisibility.
It's going to be really hard to do the cover for it, though.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Just leave it white.
Yeah, maybe we should. That's
just
a good idea.
Alpha channel. Very geeky thing. So, just leave it as an alpha channel. That's coming up next on the next free show.
Great. All right. Come and join us now for Ben and Peter's Extra Scoop. If you're a patron or you want to become one, that's great. We'll see you there.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you the quantum mechanics?